Welcome to Allies or Enemies. This time we are looking at Barcelona. Our copy was supplied by the publisher, but the thoughts in this video are all our own. Designed by Dani Garcia, Barcelona is a 1 to 4 player game all about the great urban planner Ildefons Cerda and his work on the expansion of Barcelona in the 19th century. It is actually pretty fascinating stuff that is worth looking up, but we are here to talk about the board game, so let's start with looking at how it plays.
You start the game with a coin, a cloth, a couple of citizens, and a player board full of things you will be using to help build the city. On your turn, you will place your citizens on an intersection, and then take the actions of the adjoining roads of that intersection. These actions might include placing roads that come in both small and large, placing intersections which get you stuff when people stand on them, placing cobblestones which get bonuses and free up space for storage, gaining coins and cloth and adding those to your storage, taking a modernism project, aka endgame goal, increasing the value of those projects, gaining a public service building for an immediate benefit, moving your tram and dropping off passengers, and increasing your place on the Cerda track. After you take your actions, if the required citizens are next to an available block, you must construct a building and then add those citizens to the citizen track. Once one row in a section of that citizen track is full, you score that section's Cerda goal. After the third and final Cerda scoring is triggered, the game is over, and you gain points for your projects, cleared passengers, and cleared cobblestones, and then the greatest builder is named.
Let's start with replayability because it is a big strength of Barcelona. There are oodles of different paths to victory here. You could focus on streets and trams to gain immediate points and bonuses, as well as gaining extra actions, or you can go big on gaining public and familia buildings for their one-time effects, or really target the intersection bonuses. And of course, this route will be at least partially dictated by which modernism projects you take and what the Cerda scoring goals are. It really is a pretty large sandbox, but the game is also tight enough that you'll never be able to dabble in everything. The game also comes with variable action tiles you can use to change where the actions are placed on the board, which alters the pairs of available combos, and we have found can change the game a surprising amount.
Barcelona plays from 1 to 4 players. We have mostly played at 2, and it works great at that count. The biggest shift is likely in the citizen placement. Players can always use citizens placed by anyone to construct their buildings, but at 2 players this becomes more of a cat and mouse game, as you don't want to leave your opponent set up to plomp down one of those larger buildings. That same cat and mouse also goes for filling the citizen track, as again that track is shared and you want to time it for when you're in prime position to score those goals. At 3 or 4 players, you have a bit more uncertainty in both of these and will need to think on your feet a bit more. At higher counts, you also have to account for playtime, as turns can take a while, because you always have at least 2 main actions, and sometimes even 3 or 4, and many of these can gain little sub-actions. There is a lot to do, and sometimes we even get a little bit lost on our turn, so at 4 players, you will need to be a bit patient. There's also a solo mode, which is run by a deck of cards, and it does a good job of simulating an opponent with varying difficulty levels. It does take a little bit of figuring out, but should be fairly easy to run for those familiar with solo modes, and it is worth a small learning curve.
Barcelona is very Euro, but in the classiest sense of the word. It may still have an underlying coat of beigeness, but there are a lot of pretty touches on top, like the parks in the middle of the buildings, and the row of homes on the player boards. The public buildings are a real highlight, with different interesting designs for each. But the main thing Barcelona does well is clarity. This is a complex game with a lot to keep in your head, and the graphic design does a terrific job of making things as easy as possible, reminding you of bonuses and scoring in ways that are hard to miss or misinterpret. The rulebook also does a nice job of laying everything out, and all in all, this was a much easier game to learn than we expected, especially for its weight. That said, it does still look unabashedly Euro, which is a real selling point to some, but may scare away others.
Dani Garcia has been on a bit of a tear just recently with Arborea, Windmill Valley, and this. And of the three, Barcelona is our favorite. The theme is interesting, it has a lot of tactical interaction, the mechanics are familiar but clever, and there's a bunch of different paths and strategies to explore. That said, it won't be for everyone. First of all, it is a heavy thinky game with a lot of stuff to keep in your head, and we do often find ourselves getting a bit lost on a turn. Also, those turns can take a while, which is mostly time needed for planning ahead, but just know that things can slow down. But if you are okay with a weighty challenge, there is an interesting puzzle here that rewards players for clever planning and tactics. If you are looking for a Euro with a chunky bit of interaction, you might want to plan for a game of Barcelona. And that is it. Have you played Barcelona? Or have you played Dani Garcia's other recent games? Let us know in the comments, and please do like and subscribe, and hopefully we will see you all next time for another game.